The fluorescent lights of Gate 34B buzzed overhead as Maya Chen shifted her weight from one foot to the other, her arms aching from the weight of two squirming toddlers. Her daughter Lily whimpered against her shoulder, while her son Noah kicked his feet, arching his back in the beginning stages of what Maya recognized as an impending meltdown. The departure board blinked with cruel indifference, updating the delay for the fourth time in 2 hours. Flight 247 to Seattle, originally scheduled to depart at 3 in the afternoon, now showed an estimated departure time of 8:30 in the evening. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Around her, the other passengers radiated varying degrees of frustration. Some jabbed angrily at their phones, presumably venting to loved ones or rebooking connections. Others slouched in the uncomfortable airport chairs, resignation etched across their faces. A businessman in an expensive suit paced near the window, his voice sharp as he barked into his Bluetooth headset about missed meetings and incompetent airlines. Maya felt the weight of their collective irritation pressing down on her shoulders, adding to the already crushing burden of exhaustion she carried. She had been awake since 4 that morning, dragging herself out of bed in the darkness to finish packing the essentials for this trip. The twins, just 18 months old, had sensed something different about the day and refused to go back to sleep, their internal clocks utterly disregarding Maya's desperate need for just one more hour of rest. By the time she managed to wrestle them into their car seats, load the stroller, the diaper bag roughly the size of a small suitcase, and 2 carry-on bags in her aging Honda, the sun was already creeping over the horizon, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold that she was too tired to appreciate. The drive to the airport had been mercifully uneventful, though traffic moved at a glacial pace. Maya had sung every nursery rhyme she could remember, her voice growing hoarse as she tried to keep the twins entertained. Lily had dozed off somewhere around the wheels on the bus, her tiny head lolling to the side, while Noah remained stubbornly alert, his wide brown eyes fixed on the passing scenery with an intensity that would have been comical if Maya wasn't so aware of how little sleep he had gotten the night before. Check-in had been a nightmare of its own. The self-service kiosk refused to recognize her confirmation number, forcing her to join the serpentine line of other frustrated travelers waiting for human assistance. She had balanced both twins on her hips, swaying back and forth in a motion that had become as natural to her as breathing, while other passengers cast sympathetic or annoyed glances in her direction. When Noah started fussing, reaching for the velvet rope barriers with sticky fingers, an older woman behind her had tooted loudly, the sound dripping with judgment. Security had been even worse. Maya had fumbled with shoes, laptops, liquids, and toddlers, trying to collapse the stroller with one hand while preventing Lily from crawling under the conveyor belt with the other. The TSA agent had been kind enough, offering a tired smile as Maya juggled everything, but the people behind her in line had been less charitable. She could feel their impatience like a physical force pushing against her back, urging her to move faster, be more efficient, take up less space in their world. By the time she reached the gate, Maya was already running on fumes. The twins had picked up on her stress, growing increasingly fussy as the morning wore on. She had managed to feed them applesauce pouches and crackers from the diaper bag, praying that the food would buy her a few moments of peace. It had worked for approximately 12 minutes before Noah decided he was finished and flung his cracker across the waiting area, where it shattered against the shoes of a woman in yoga pants who shot Maya a look that could have curdled milk. Now, with the delay stretching into its 3rd hour, Maya could feel her careful composure beginning to crack. The twins were past tired, sailing directly into that dangerous territory of overtired, where sleep seemed impossible and everything became a trigger for tears. Lily had been crying on and off for the past 20 minutes, her wails increasing in volume each time Maya tried to set her down. Noah, not to be outdone by his sister, had joined in the chorus, his face turning red as he screamed his displeasure at the world. Maya bounced them both, a desperate rhythm that made her shoulders scream in protest. She whispered soothing nonsense, the words blurring together in an endless stream of there, and it's okay, and we'll be home soon. But the twins were beyond comfort now, lost in their exhaustion and confusion. They didn't understand why they were in this strange place with its harsh lights and echoing announcements. They didn't comprehend why their routine had been shattered, why their cribs were nowhere to be found, why their mother's arms, usually a source of comfort, now felt tense and uncertain. The other passengers were no longer trying to hide their annoyance. Maya could feel their stares like pinpricks against her skin. Some people turned away, making a show of putting in earbuds or adjusting their noise-canceling headphones. Others stared openly, their expressions ranging from pity to outright hostility. One man muttered something to his companion, not quite quiet enough for Maya to miss the words control and children and shouldn't travel. Heat flooded Maya's cheeks, a toxic mixture of embarrassment and anger. She wanted to scream at them all, to explain that she was doing her best, that she hadn't asked for this delay, that her children were tired and confused and not tiny terrorists designed to ruin everyone's day. She wanted to tell them about the funeral waiting at the other end of this journey, about how her mother had passed away suddenly 3 days ago, about how she was flying across the country to say goodbye while simultaneously trying to shield her babies from the crushing weight of her grief. But she said nothing. She just kept bouncing, kept swaying, kept murmuring her useless reassurances while tears pricked at the corners of her eyes. This was supposed to be a simple trip. Get on the plane, fly to Seattle, deal with the funeral arrangements, come home. Simple. But nothing about single motherhood was simple, and nothing about grief followed a predictable path. Maya's thoughts drifted back to the phone call that had shattered her world. She had been giving the twins their bath, soap suds everywhere, when her phone rang. Her brother's name flashed on the screen, and something about the time, 9 p.m. on a Tuesday, made her heart sink even before she answered. His voice had been hollow, scraped clean of emotion by shock, as he told her that their mother had collapsed at the grocery store. A massive stroke. The doctors had done everything they could. She was gone before the ambulance even arrived. The bath had turned cold as Maya sat on the bathroom floor. Phone pressed to her ear, while her brother's words washed over her. Lily and Noah, sensing something wrong, had grown quiet, their usual splashing replaced by wide-eyed stares. When Maya finally hung up, she had gathered both twins to her chest, holding them so tightly they had squirmed in protest, and she had let herself cry for exactly 5 minutes. Then she had dried her tears, dried her children, and started making the necessary arrangements. That was 3 days ago. 3 days of phone calls and logistics, of booking flights and packing bags, of explaining to her boss that she needed emergency leave, of trying to function normally when everything inside her felt shattered. 3 days of plastering on a smile for the twins while internally screaming. 3 days of being strong because she had no other choice. The airline had announced the first delay just as Maya was getting the twins settled for boarding. Mechanical issues, they said, nothing serious, just a quick check. 30 minutes, maybe 45. Maya had nodded, adjusting Lily on her hip, and settled in to wait. The second delay came an hour later. More extensive than initially thought, they explained, but definitely fixable. Another hour, probably. Maya had fed the twins their snacks, changed their diapers on the changing table in the family restroom, and tried to keep them entertained with the small toys she had packed. The third delay had arrived with apologies and the explanation that they were waiting for a part to be flown in from a nearby airport. 2 more hours, maybe 3. Some passengers had given up at that point, heading to the ticket counter to rebook on different flights or different days. Maya had considered it, standing in the gate area with both twins growing increasingly agitated, but the next available flight wasn't until tomorrow afternoon, and she couldn't miss the funeral. Her mother's service was scheduled for the day after tomorrow, and Maya needed to be there. She had to be there. So she stayed, and she waited, and she watched her children slowly unravel, their exhaustion mounting with each passing hour. She had tried everything she could think of. She walked them up and down the concourse until her legs felt like jelly. She took them to the play area near Gate 12, watching as they climbed on the foam airplanes and slide, hoping the physical activity would tire them out. She bought overpriced crackers and juice boxes from a kiosk, rationing them out like precious resources. She read their favorite board books so many times she could recite them backwards. Nothing worked. Nothing could work because what the twins needed was sleep, real sleep in their cribs at home, not this limbo of airport waiting and strange sounds and fluorescent lighting that made everything feel surreal and wrong. Now, as evening approached and the fourth delay pushed their departure back even further, Maya felt her last reserves of strength beginning to fail. Noah was screaming directly into her ear, his little fists pounding against her shoulder. Lily had given up screaming and had moved into that heartbreaking territory of exhausted sobs, her whole body shaking with each breath. Maya's arms burned, her back ached, her head pounded, and still, she bounced and swayed and whispered her useless comfort. A gate agent, a young woman with her hair pulled back in a severe bun, approached the microphone with an expression that suggested she had drawn the short straw. She cleared her throat, and the sound echoed through the speakers, cutting through the ambient noise of the gate area. Maya felt her stomach drop. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time. So if you're enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Another delay. It had to be another delay. The agent's voice was professionally apologetic as she announced that yes, there would be another delay. The part they needed had arrived, but installation was taking longer than expected. At least another hour, possibly more. She assured everyone that the airline was committed to getting them to Seattle as soon as safely possible and that they would provide updates every 30 minutes. For those who wished to rebook, she would be happy to assist them at the counter. A collective groan rose from the assembled passengers. The businessman with the Bluetooth headset threw his hands in the air, his face purple with rage. A young couple who had been cuddling in the corner chairs sat up, their romantic getaway plans clearly souring. An elderly man with a cane shook his head slowly, resignation weighing down his shoulders. Maya barely registered any of it. The agent's words had become white noise, just another thing happening around her while she focused all her energy on keeping herself together. She couldn't fall apart. Not here. Not with everyone watching. Not when her children needed her to be strong. But Noah's screaming was reaching new decibels, his face so red it was nearly purple. Lily had stopped sobbing and had moved into that hiccuping, gasping cry that signaled she was completely spent. And Maya, exhausted and grieving and so desperately alone, felt the first tear slip down her cheek, followed quickly by another. She turned away from the crowd, facing the massive windows that looked out onto the tarmac. Outside, the sun was beginning its descent, painting the sky in oranges and purples. Planes taxied back and forth, taking other people to other destinations, everyone else's life moving forward while hers seemed stuck in this terrible, endless moment. Maya was so focused on the window, on trying to compose herself and calm her children, that she didn't notice the woman approaching until she was standing right beside her. Maya glanced over, ready to apologize for the noise, to offer some hollow explanation or excuse, but the words died in her throat when she saw the woman's face. She was older, perhaps in her late 60s, with steel gray hair, cut short and practical. Her face was kind, deeply lined in a way that spoke of laughter and sorrow in equal measure. She wore simple jeans and a soft cardigan, and there was something about her presence that immediately suggested competence and calm. But it was her eyes that caught Maya's attention, warm brown eyes that held no judgment, no irritation, only understanding and something that looked remarkably like compassion. The woman didn't say anything at first. She simply stood there, meeting Maya's gaze, and in that moment of connection, Maya felt something inside her chest loosen, just slightly. Here was someone who wasn't glaring, wasn't tooting, wasn't treating her like an inconvenience or a failure. Here was someone who was simply present, witnessing her struggle without adding to it. Then the woman smiled, a gentle upturn of her lips, and spoke in a voice that was low and soothing. "May I help?" The question was so simple, so straightforward, that it caught Maya completely off guard. In the past 3 days of airports and logistics and grief, not a single person had asked if she needed help. Oh, she had received plenty of advice. Strangers had been more than willing to tell her what she should be doing, how she should handle her children, what techniques she should try. But no one had simply asked if they could help. No one had offered their assistance without strings or judgment attached. Maya's throat tightened, fresh tears threatening to spill over. She wanted to say yes, wanted to accept this unexpected kindness, but pride and exhaustion tangled in her mouth, making words difficult. What came out was barely more than a whisper. They won't stop crying. They're so tired, and I don't know what to do anymore. The woman nodded, understanding flickering in her eyes. Of course they won't stop. They're exhausted, and they can feel that you're exhausted too. Little ones are remarkably good at picking up on their parents' stress. May I? She held out her arms, not in a demanding way, but as an offer, a possibility. Maya hesitated for only a moment before transferring Noah into the woman's capable hands. The relief of having one less child to hold was immediate and overwhelming. Her right arm, freed from Noah's weight, tingled as blood flow returned. The woman settled Noah against her shoulder with practiced ease, her hand rubbing slow circles on his back. She began to hum, a low melodic sound that wasn't quite a song, but carried a rhythm that was immediately soothing. Noah, surprised by this change in circumstances, paused in his screaming. His sobs downgraded to hiccuping whimpers as he processed this new person holding him. With her free arm, the woman gestured to the nearby chairs. "Sit," she instructed gently. "You need to take the weight off for a minute. When's the last time you sat down?" Maya couldn't remember. She moved to the chairs on autopilot, sinking into the hard plastic with a groan of relief. Lily remained in her arms, still crying, but with less intensity now, perhaps sensing the shift in her mother's energy. Maya adjusted her daughter's position, cradling her more securely, and felt some of the tension drain from her shoulders. The woman settled into the chair next to Maya, still humming to Noah, her hand never stopping its soothing circles on his back. Up close, Maya could see the woman wore no makeup, and her hands were weathered and strong, the hands of someone who had worked hard throughout her life. There was a calm competence about her that reminded Maya achingly of her own mother, and that realization brought a fresh wave of grief crashing over her. "I'm Eleanor," the woman said, her voice still low and soothing. "I couldn't help but notice you've been having a challenging time." "How old are they?" 18 months, Maya managed, her voice thick with unshed tears. "Twins. And I'm Maya. Thank you for this. I'm sorry they're being so loud." Eleanor shook her head firmly. "You have nothing to apologize for. They're babies, and babies cry. Anyone who's forgotten that has either never had children or has willfully chosen to forget how difficult it can be." She shifted Noah slightly, and the little boy's head drooped against her shoulder, his cries fading to whimpers. "This one's almost out. When did they last sleep?" "This morning," Maya admitted, "before we left for the airport. That was 9 hours ago, and we've been stuck here for most of that time because of the delays. They're beyond exhausted." "As am I," Eleanor observed, though her tone held no judgment. "You look like you're running on empty. Are you traveling alone?" The question, asked so gently, nearly broke Maya's fragile composure. She nodded, not trusting her voice. Eleanor made a soft sound of sympathy, and that small acknowledgement of how difficult this was, how hard Maya was working, finally tipped her over the edge. The tears she had been holding back for 3 days, through phone calls and arrangements, and the monumental task of single parenting through grief, finally spilled over. "I'm so tired," Maya whispered, the words catching on sobs. "My mom died 3 days ago, and I'm trying to get to Seattle for the funeral, and everything keeps going wrong, and I can't do this. I can't keep doing this alone." Lily, feeling her mother's body shake with sobs, started crying harder in response. Maya tried to soothe her, but her own tears were flowing freely now, and she couldn't seem to stop them. She was dimly aware that she was falling apart in the middle of a crowded airport gate, that dozens of strangers could see her breaking down, but she was too exhausted to care anymore. Eleanor's free hand reached over and gently squeezed Maya's shoulder. "Oh, honey, I'm so sorry. Losing a mother is one of the hardest things we ever have to face, and doing it while caring for little ones is nearly impossible. You're not failing. You're surviving, and that's all anyone can ask of you right now." The kindness in Eleanor's voice, the complete absence of judgment, made Maya cry harder. She buried her face against Lily's head, breathing in the familiar scent of her daughter's baby shampoo, trying to ground herself in something concrete and real. Eleanor continued speaking, her voice steady and calm. "Listen to me, Maya. You're going to get through this. You're going to get on that plane whenever it finally boards, and you're going to get to Seattle, and you're going to say goodbye to your mother. And these two little ones are going to be fine because they have you, and you are clearly doing everything in your power to take care of them. But right now, in this moment, you need to let someone help you. There's no prize for suffering alone. There's no medal for making it through without accepting kindness when it's offered. So I'm going to sit here with you, and I'm going to help with these babies, and you're going to take a breath and remember that you don't have to carry everything by yourself." Maya lifted her head, wiping at her tears with the back of her free hand. She looked at Eleanor through blurry eyes and saw nothing but genuine compassion and understanding. Noah had gone completely quiet in Eleanor's arms, his body relaxed in sleep, his mouth slightly open. The sight of her son peaceful and calm, something she hadn't seen in hours, made Maya's chest ache with gratitude. "Thank you," she managed. "I don't know what else to say except thank you." Eleanor smiled. "You don't need to say anything else. Now, let's see if we can get this little one to follow her brother's example. May I?" Maya hesitated only briefly before transferring Lily into Eleanor's other arm. The woman settled both twins against her chest with remarkable ease, supporting Noah with one arm and Lily with the other. She began humming again, that same wordless melody, while gently rocking both children. Lily's cries began to taper off, her exhaustion finally catching up with her now that she was in secure arms and hearing that soothing sound. Maya leaned back in the uncomfortable airport chair and felt her body sag with relief. Her arms, freed from the weight of both children, felt strange and light. She crossed them over her chest, hugging herself, trying to hold together the pieces of her breaking heart. Eleanor continued to hum and rock, her movements practiced and sure. After a few minutes, Lily's cries faded to occasional hiccups and then to silence. Both twins were asleep, their little chests rising and falling in the deep rhythm of exhaustion finally met. Eleanor adjusted them carefully, making sure they were comfortable, and then looked over at Maya with a satisfied smile. "There we go. Sometimes all they need is a fresh set of arms and a calm presence. You've been carrying so much stress and grief, and little ones can sense that. It's not your fault they wouldn't calm down for you. They just needed someone who wasn't quite so weighed down by the world." Maya stared at the sleeping children, hardly believing the transformation. They looked peaceful now, their faces relaxed, no trace of the distress that had consumed them moments ago. Watching them sleep in this stranger's capable arms, Maya felt something shift inside her. It wasn't that her grief lessened or her exhaustion disappeared. Those things remained, heavy and present. But the crushing sense of being utterly alone, of having to face everything by herself, lifted slightly. "How did you do that?" Maya asked, genuine wonder in her voice. Eleanor chuckled softly. "Years of practice. I raised 5 children of my own, and I've helped with more grandchildren than I can count. You develop certain skills over time. But more than technique, it's about energy. Children respond to calm. When you're stressed and tired, they feel it and reflect it back. It's not a criticism, just a fact of how little ones work." 5 children, Maya repeated, trying to imagine managing that many. "I can barely handle 2. "You're handling them beautifully," Eleanor corrected. "You're doing it alone, in an airport, while dealing with grief and travel delays, and you've managed to keep them fed and changed and relatively safe despite everything working against you. That's not barely handling them. That's succeeding against considerable odds." "It doesn't feel like succeeding," Maya admitted. "It never does when you're in the middle of it. When I had my 5, There were days I thought I wouldn't survive until bedtime. My husband traveled for work, gone weeks at a time, and there I was with 5 children under the age of 8. I remember one particularly terrible day when the washing machine broke and flooded the laundry room. The dog got into the trash and spread it all over the backyard. My youngest came down with an ear infection, and I somehow managed to burn dinner despite only having to heat up a frozen casserole. I sat on the kitchen floor that night, surrounded by crying children and burnt food and soggy laundry, and I wept. I was convinced I was the worst mother in the world. Eleanor paused, her expression distant with memory. But we survived. We all survived. And those children grew up healthy and happy, and not one of them remembers that terrible day or any of the other days when I felt like I was failing them. Maya absorbed this, finding unexpected comfort in the image of this capable woman also struggling and surviving. It made her own struggles feel less like personal failures and more like universal experiences of parenthood. Did you ever get used to it? Maya asked. The constant feeling of not being enough? Eleanor considered the question carefully. I got better at accepting that being enough doesn't mean being perfect. It means showing up every day and doing the best you can with what you have. Some days your best is patient and creative and filled with joy. Other days your best is keeping everyone alive and fed. Both count. Both matter. The announcement system crackled to life, and the gate agent's voice filled the area again. This time, her message brought better news. The plane was repaired. Boarding would begin in approximately 30 minutes. Passengers should stay near the gate and listen for their boarding group announcements. A collective sigh of relief rippled through the waiting area. The businessman with the Bluetooth headset actually smiled. The young couple squeezed each other's hands. Even the elderly man with the cane perked up, straightening in his chair. Maya felt a different emotion, something close to panic. 30 minutes meant she would have to wake the twins, get them organized, navigate boarding with all their bags and gear, and somehow keep them calm enough to actually get on the plane and survive a 3-hour flight. The brief respite Eleanor had provided suddenly felt like a cruel tease, a moment of peace before plunging back into chaos. Eleanor must have seen something in Maya's expression because she spoke quickly. We'll manage it. I'm on this flight too, so I can help you board and get settled. What's your seat assignment? Maya pulled out her phone, checking her boarding pass. 23A, B, and C. Window, middle, and aisle in a 3-seat row. The airline had automatically assigned them together when she booked. Perfect. I'm in 21D, just 2 rows ahead of you on the other side. Eleanor seemed pleased by this coincidence, as though the universe had arranged their seats specifically for this purpose. I'll help you get the twins settled, and if they fuss during the flight, I'll be right there to assist. You won't be alone in this. The relief that flooded through Maya was so intense it brought fresh tears to her eyes. I don't know how to thank you. You don't even know me, and you're being so kind. Eleanor's expression softened. When my husband died 15 years ago, I was convinced I would drown in grief. I had my children and grandchildren, of course, but there's a particular loneliness that comes with losing your partner of 40 years. I felt untethered, floating without anchor. Then one day, while I was at the grocery store, probably looking as lost and overwhelmed as you did today, a complete stranger helped me carry my bags to my car. Such a small thing, but it reminded me that kindness exists in the world, that people can show up for each other even when they have no obligation to do so. She paused, looking down at the sleeping twins in her arms. That stranger's small act of kindness stayed with me. It reminded me that we're not meant to struggle alone, that accepting help isn't weakness, it's wisdom. So when I saw you here today, barely holding it together, I recognized something of myself in you. And I thought, maybe I can be that person for someone else. Maybe I can offer the same kindness that was once offered to me. Maya wiped at her eyes again, overwhelmed by the generosity of this stranger who asked for nothing in return, who simply saw someone struggling and chose to help. In a world that so often felt harsh and judgmental, Eleanor's compassion was like cool water on a burn. The next 30 minutes passed in a blur of preparation. Eleanor helped Maya organize the diaper bag, making sure everything they might need during the flight was easily accessible. She held the twins while Maya used the restroom, something Maya hadn't been able to do in hours. When boarding was finally called, Eleanor gently woke the twins, who emerged from sleep groggy but calm, their earlier distress seemingly forgotten. Maya maneuvered through the boarding process with Eleanor's steady assistance. Where before she had felt like she was constantly in everyone's way, now she moved with purpose and support. Eleanor ran interference with impatient passengers, calmly asking them to be patient as Maya struggled with the stroller and the twins and the various bags. No one dared argue with Eleanor, whose firm but kind demeanor commanded respect. They made their way down the jetway and onto the plane, where the flight attendants greeted them with practiced smiles. Maya found her row and immediately began the complicated process of getting both twins into their seats. Eleanor helped lift bags into the overhead compartment and kept Lily entertained while Maya buckled Noah into his seat. Once both children were secure, Eleanor squeezed Maya's hand. "You're doing great. I'll be right up here if you need anything. Just give me a wave, and I'll come running." Maya nodded, too emotional to speak. She watched Eleanor make her way to her own seat 2 rows ahead, offering a cheerful greeting to the passenger next to her. Then Maya settled in her own seat between the twins, Lily by the window, and Noah in the aisle seat. She took a deep breath, the first truly full breath she felt like she had taken in hours. The plane began to fill with passengers, everyone eager to finally be on their way after the extended delays. Maya kept the twins occupied with their small toys and books, hyper-aware of the other passengers around them and determined to keep her children from disturbing anyone else. Noah reached for the tray table, fascinated by how it folded up and down. Lily pressed her face against the window, making happy sounds at the trucks and equipment moving around outside. A flight attendant stopped by to check their seatbelts and offer a smile. "Your babies are adorable." "How old?" 18 months, Maya replied automatically. "Such a fun age," the attendant said warmly. "If you need anything during the flight, just press your call button. We've got extra snacks and coloring pages if that would help keep them entertained." The kindness kept coming, small gestures that built on Eleanor's foundation of compassion. Maya felt some of the tightness in her chest ease. Maybe this wouldn't be as terrible as she feared. Maybe she could actually survive this flight. The captain's voice came through the speakers, apologizing once again for the delays and announcing their imminent departure. The plane pushed back from the gate, and Maya felt the familiar sensation of movement. They were finally leaving, finally heading toward Seattle and everything that awaited her there. Lily clapped her hands at the window, delighted by the movement. Noah kicked his feet, making happy sounds. For this brief moment, both twins were content, and Maya allowed herself to hope that maybe, just maybe, the worst was over. The plane taxied toward the runway, joining the queue of other aircraft waiting for takeoff. Maya glanced forward and caught Eleanor's eye. The older woman turned to her seat and gave Maya a thumbs up and an encouraging smile. Maya returned the gesture, feeling a connection to this stranger who had appeared exactly when she needed someone most. As the plane accelerated down the runway and lifted into the air, Maya closed her eyes briefly. She thought of her mother, of the funeral that awaited, of the impossibly difficult days ahead. She thought of her twins, so small and dependent, counting on her to hold everything together. She thought of Eleanor, proof that kindness still existed in unexpected places. The plane climbed higher, leaving the ground behind, and Maya opened her eyes to find both twins staring at her with identical expressions of wonder. Lily pointed at the window, where the world below was growing smaller. Noah reached for his mother's hand, his tiny fingers wrapping around hers. "We're going to be okay," Maya whispered to them, and for the first time since that terrible phone call 3 days ago, she almost believed it. The flight leveled off, and the seatbelt sign dinged off. Immediately, several passengers stood to retrieve items from the overhead compartments or make their way to the restrooms. Maya stayed seated, both twins still content for the moment, and allowed herself to simply breathe. Eleanor appeared in the aisle, having extracted herself from her seat to check on Maya. "How are we doing back here?" So far, so good, Maya reported. They're fascinated by the window and the movement. Hopefully it lasts. Eleanor nodded approvingly. The key is to keep them engaged but calm. Don't let the energy get too high, or you'll have a harder time settling them down later. Low-key entertainment is your friend. She pulled a small fabric book from her pocket. I always travel with a few things for situations like this. My grandchildren have taught me to be prepared. May I? She sat in the empty seat across the aisle and held the book where both twins could see it. It was a simple cloth book with different textures on each page, crinkly material and soft velvet and smooth satin. Lily immediately reached for it, her fingers exploring the various surfaces. Noah leaned over to see, his eyes wide with interest. Eleanor showed them each page slowly, describing the textures and letting them touch everything. Her voice remained low and soothing, never rising to an excited pitch that might overstimulate already tired children. Maya watched, learning from Eleanor's technique, filing away these lessons for future use. After a few minutes, Eleanor handed the book to Lily and returned to her own seat, but not before giving Maya's shoulder another reassuring squeeze. Remember, I'm right here if you need me. The next hour passed more smoothly than Maya had dared to hope. The twins alternated between playing with their small toys, looking out the window, and eating the snacks Maya doled out carefully from the diaper bag. Noah grew drowsy and rested his head against Maya's arm, his eyelids drooping. Lily fought sleep for a while longer, determined not to miss anything, but eventually she too succumbed, her head tilting against the window. Maya sat very still, afraid to move and wake them. She stared at their sleeping faces, memorizing the curve of their cheeks and the flutter of their eyelashes. These children, born from a relationship that had imploded spectacularly, were her entire world. Their father had left when she was 6 months pregnant, claiming he wasn't ready for the responsibility. Maya had faced single motherhood with terror and determination in equal measure. Her mother had been her rock during those early months. She had flown out to help when the twins were born, staying for 3 weeks to cook and clean and hold babies while Maya recovered. She had called every day after returning home, listening to Maya's fears and frustrations without judgment. She had sent care packages filled with diapers and baby clothes and Maya's favorite cookies. She had been planning to visit again next month. Now she was gone, and Maya would have to face the rest of her life without that constant support. The thought was crushing. How did people survive the death of their mothers? How did they keep functioning when such a fundamental source of love and guidance disappeared from the world? Maya felt tears threatening again and forced them back. She couldn't fall apart now, not on a plane full of strangers with 2 sleeping children depending on her to keep it together. She focused on her breathing, in and out, until the wave of grief passed. The flight attendants came through with a beverage service. Maya quietly requested a ginger ale, hoping the bubbles would settle her nervous stomach. The attendant handed her the cup with a gentle smile and moved on to the next row without asking if Maya wanted anything else, somehow intuiting that Maya had her hands full. Eleanor appeared again shortly after, this time carrying 2 small packages of cookies and a bottle of water. She placed them on Maya's tray table without a word, just a knowing look that said she understood Maya probably hadn't eaten anything substantial all day. The plane touched down in Seattle just after 11 at night, 3 hours later than originally scheduled and nearly 8 hours after Maya had first arrived at the airport that morning. The twins, mercifully, had slept through most of the flight, waking only once when turbulence jostled them from their dreams. Eleanor had been there immediately, appearing in the aisle with her calm presence and soothing voice, helping Maya comfort them back to sleep before any real crying could begin. As the aircraft taxied to the gate, Maya felt exhaustion settling into her bones like a physical weight. The adrenaline that had sustained her through the delays and the flight was finally draining away, leaving behind a hollow fatigue that made even the simplest tasks feel monumental. She still had to collect their bags, find ground transportation, navigate to her brother's house across the city, and somehow get 2 overtired toddlers inside and settled before she could even think about sleeping herself. The overhead lights brightened as the plane came to a complete stop, and passengers immediately began standing, reaching for their belongings with the impatient energy of people who had been confined too long. Maya remained seated, knowing from experience that trying to move with the twins while everyone else was jostling for position would only result in chaos and judgment. Eleanor appeared once more, having retrieved her own small carry-on from the overhead compartment. She waited patiently in the aisle until the initial rush of passengers had depleted, then helped Maya gather the diaper bag, the toys that had scattered during the flight, and the various items that somehow always multiplied when traveling with small children. "Let me carry something," Eleanor insisted, taking the diaper bag before Maya could protest. "You focus on the babies." They deplaned slowly, Maya carrying Lily while Noah toddled beside her, holding tight to her free hand. His steps were unsteady with exhaustion, and twice Eleanor had to steady him when he stumbled. The jetway felt impossibly long, stretching ahead of them like a tunnel with no end. Other passengers streamed past them, eager to reach baggage claim and escape into their waiting lives. Finally, they emerged into the gate area, and Maya paused to get her bearings. She had flown into SeaTac Airport once before, years ago for a college friend's wedding, but she barely remembered the layout. Everything looked strange and disorienting in her exhausted state. "Baggage claim is downstairs," Eleanor said, pointing toward the signs. "Do you have someone picking you up?" "My brother is supposed to meet me," Maya replied, shifting Lily to her other hip. "But I should probably text him. He was expecting us hours ago." She fumbled for her phone with her free hand, nearly dropping it twice before managing to pull up her messages. There were several texts from her brother David, the most recent sent 20 minutes ago, saying he was waiting at baggage claim carousel 3. Maya typed back a quick response that they had landed and would be there soon. The walk to baggage claim felt endless. Noah's steps grew slower and more uncoordinated with each passing minute, until Eleanor simply scooped him up, carrying him against her hip with the ease of someone who had done this countless times before. He didn't protest, just rested his head against her shoulder and stuck his thumb in his mouth, a habit Maya had been trying to break him of but didn't have the heart to correct in this moment. They took the escalator down to baggage claim, where the carousels were already spinning with luggage from various flights. Maya scanned the crowd, looking for her brother's familiar face. She hadn't seen David in person in almost a year, though they texted regularly and video called every few weeks. She spotted him near Carousel 3, pacing back and forth while checking his phone, his shoulders tight with worry. "David," she called out, her voice barely carrying over the noise of the baggage claim area. He looked up immediately, his face flooding with relief when he saw her. "Maya." "Well, thank God." He rushed over, pulling her into an awkward one-armed hug while she still held Lily. "I was getting worried. The flight tracker showed you landed 30 minutes ago. It took forever to deplane with the twins," Maya explained, feeling guilty even though the delay wasn't her fault. "I'm sorry you've been waiting." David shook his head, brushing aside her apology. "Don't be ridiculous. I'm just glad you're here safely." He looked at the twins, his expression softening. "God, they've gotten so big. I haven't seen them since video calls." He noticed Eleanor standing nearby with Noah, and confusion crossed his face. "Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize you were traveling with someone." "This is Eleanor," Maya said quickly. "She helped me on the flight. Actually, she helped me at the gate and on the flight. I don't know what I would have done without her." Eleanor smiled warmly at David, shifting Noah slightly in her arms. "Your sister was having a challenging day. I was happy to lend a hand. These little ones are precious." David's confusion shifted to understanding and then gratitude. "Thank you so much for helping her. Traveling alone with twins is no joke, especially with all those delays. I wanted to come to her home city and fly back with her, but I couldn't leave Mom's affairs unattended." The mention of their mother hung in the air between them, a painful reminder of why Maya was here at all. Eleanor seemed to sense the shift in mood and gently transferred Noah back to David's arms. "Well, I'll let you all get to your reunion. Maya, it was truly a pleasure meeting you. You're doing a wonderful job with these children." "Wait," Maya said, reaching out to touch Eleanor's arm. I never got your contact information. I like to thank you properly, maybe send you something. Eleanor waved away the suggestion. No need for that, dear. Just pay it forward someday. When you see someone struggling, offer them the same kindness. That's thanks enough. She gave Maya's hand a final squeeze, then disappeared into the crowd before Maya could protest further. Maya stared after her, this stranger who had appeared exactly when needed and then vanished just as suddenly, like something out of a fairy tale. She felt David watching her and turned to find him studying her with concern. You okay, Maya? You look completely wiped out. I'm exhausted, she admitted. It's been the longest day of my life, and that's saying something given the past 3 days. David nodded, his own exhaustion evident in the lines around his eyes. Let's get your bags and get out of here. The house is ready for you, and the twins can go straight to bed. They waited at the carousel for Maya's luggage to appear, a process that took another 20 minutes that felt like hours. Lily had woken up fully by this point and was fussing, wanting to be put down, but too unsteady on her feet to safely navigate the crowded baggage claim area. Noah remained plastered to David, clinging to this uncle he barely remembered with the desperate grip of an exhausted child who had given up trying to make sense of anything. Finally, Maya spotted her 2 battered suitcases emerging from the carousel's depths. David grabbed them both with his free hand, somehow managing to balance Noah and the luggage with the coordination of someone accustomed to juggling multiple responsibilities. They made their way out to the parking structure, where David's reliable sedan waited under the harsh fluorescent lights. Getting the twins into their car seats was another exercise in patience. Both children had passed the point of cooperation and into that territory where everything was a battle. Lily arched her back, refusing to be buckled. Noah kicked his feet, catching David in the stomach. Maya's hands shook with exhaustion as she finally got them both secured, whispering apologies and promises that bed was coming soon, very soon. David loaded the luggage into the trunk while Maya collapsed into the passenger seat, letting her head fall back against the headrest. Through the windshield, she could see the night sky, cloudy and dark, so different from the clear skies back home. Seattle's famous rain hadn't started yet, but she could feel it waiting in the heavy air. David climbed into the driver's seat and started the engine, glancing over at his sister with worry. What did you last eat? Maya tried to remember. The cookies Eleanor had given her on the plane. Before that, a granola bar at the airport around noon. I don't know. This morning maybe. There's food at the house, David said, pulling out of the parking space. Lisa made sure the fridge is stocked. She wanted to come tonight too, but someone had to stay with the kids. How are Emma and Jake handling everything? Maya asked, thinking of her niece and nephew, ages 7 and 5. David's jaw tightened. They don't really understand. Emma knows something is wrong, but she's too young to grasp the permanence of it. Jake just keeps asking when Grandma is coming to visit again. The words hit Maya like a physical blow. Her mother had doted on Emma and Jake, video calling them every week, sending birthday cards with money tucked inside, planning special outings whenever she visited. The children had lost their grandmother, and like Lily and Noah, they were too young to fully comprehend what that meant. They drove in silence for a while, the twins dozing fitfully in their car seats, the city lights sliding past the windows. Maya watched Seattle emerge around them, all rain-slick streets and glowing storefronts and people going about their lives, completely unaware that Maya's world had shattered. David finally spoke again, his voice rough. I still can't believe she's gone. I keep expecting her to call and tell me what to do about the funeral arrangements or the house or any of this. Maya swallowed hard against the lump in her throat. What happened to her stuff? Her things at the house? Everything's still there. I couldn't bring myself to start going through it yet. I thought maybe we could do it together after the funeral. Her voice was still on the answering machine when I called yesterday to check on things. I couldn't erase it. They fell silent again, both lost in their private grief. Maya thought about her mother's house, the small ranch-style home where she and David had grown up. She pictured her mother's reading glasses on the side table, her favorite coffee mug in the kitchen cabinet, her gardening gloves by the back door. All these ordinary objects that now existed without the person who had given them meaning. The drive to David's house took 40 minutes. 40 minutes of Maya fighting to stay awake while exhaustion pulled at her like a riptide. When they finally pulled into the driveway of David's split level in the suburbs, Maya felt tears of relief prick her eyes. They had made it. Against all odds and delays and difficulties, they had arrived. Lisa opened the front door as they approached. Her expression warmed despite the late hour. She was still in her work clothes from earlier, slacks, and a blouse now wrinkled from a long day. She pulled Maya into a tight hug before either of them said a word. "I'm so glad you made it safely," Lisa murmured. David was climbing the walls with worry. "I'm sorry we're so late," Maya said automatically. Lisa pulled back, holding Maya at arm's length. "Stop apologizing. You're here now, and that's what matters. Let's get these babies inside and settled." Together, the three adults managed to extract the twins from their car seats and carry them into the house. David had set up a portable crib in the guest room for the twins to share, along with a twin bed for Maya. It was cramped but functional, and Maya was too grateful to care about space. The twins were asleep before their heads hit the crib mattress, both of them too exhausted to protest the unfamiliar surroundings. Maya stood over them for a long moment, watching their chests rise and fall, making sure they were truly settled before she could allow herself to think about her own needs. When she emerged from the guest room, closing the door softly behind her, she found David and Lisa waiting in the kitchen. Lisa had set out a plate of sandwiches and a bowl of fruit, simple food that Maya's exhausted stomach could handle. She sat at the kitchen table and forced herself to eat, each bite requiring conscious effort to chew and swallow. "We need to talk about tomorrow," David said gently, sitting across from her. "The funeral home called this afternoon. They need final confirmation on the service details." Maya nodded, though the thought of dealing with logistics made her want to crawl under the table and never emerge. "What still needs to be decided?" David pulled out a folder, the same type of folder Maya had carried through airports and gate areas, filled with papers that represented a life reduced to bureaucratic details. Most of it's set. The service is at 2 in the afternoon at Morrison Funeral Home. Pastor Richards from Mom's Church will officiate. The burial will be at Riverside Cemetery immediately after. We still need to finalize the photo boards and decide who's speaking at the service. "I can speak," Maya offered, though the thought terrified her. "I should speak." David looked relieved. "I was hoping you'd say that. I don't think I can get through it without falling apart, but you are always better with words than me." Maya wasn't sure that was true, but she didn't argue. "What about the photo boards?" Lisa spoke up. "I've been collecting photos from everyone. Your mom's friends have been incredibly helpful, sending over pictures from various events and trips. I'll put together the boards tomorrow morning. You don't need to worry about that." "Thank you," Maya said, meaning it more deeply than the simple words could convey. "Thank you for handling so much of this." Lisa reached across the table and squeezed Maya's hand. "That's what family does. Your mom was important to all of us, not just you and David." They talked through more details, the number of people expected, the catering that would follow the burial, the thank you cards that would need to be sent. Maya's head spun with information, but she forced herself to focus, to absorb what she needed to know. This was the last thing she could do for her mother, make sure her funeral was handled with care and respect. By the time they finished, it was nearly 1 in the morning. Maya could barely keep her eyes open. Lisa shooed her toward the guest room with promises that she would wake her if the twins stirred during the night, though Maya knew she wouldn't be able to sleep through their cries, even if she wanted to. The guest room was dark and quiet when Maya slipped inside. She could hear the twins breathing in their shared crib, soft sounds that were the backdrop to her entire existence now. She changed quickly into the pajamas she had packed, not bothering to brush her teeth or wash her face, too exhausted for even basic hygiene. She lay down on the twin bed, the mattress thin and the pillow flat, but it felt like heaven after the day she had endured. Her body ached in ways she hadn't known were possible. Her arms throbbed from carrying children for hours. Her back screamed from hunching over to soothe and comfort. Her head pounded from crying and stress and too little food and water. But as uncomfortable as she was physically, the emotional pain cut deeper. Tomorrow she would have to face her mother's funeral. She would have to stand in front of family and friends and find words to express the inexpressible. She would have to be strong and composed when every cell in her body wanted to collapse and weep. Maya thought about Eleanor, that stranger who had offered kindness without expectation. She thought about how Eleanor had lost her husband 15 years ago and had somehow survived that grief. If Eleanor could get through losing her partner of 40 years, surely Maya could get through losing her mother. People did it every day. They survived impossible losses and found ways to keep living. She closed her eyes, seeking sleep that refused to come. Her mind raced with everything she needed to do, everything she needed to say, everything she needed to feel, but couldn't allow herself to feel yet. The twins would wake in a few hours, needing breakfast and attention and a normalcy that only she could provide. She couldn't afford to fall apart. Not yet. Not when they still needed her to be their anchor. Somewhere in the house, a clock chimed 2. Maya listened to its echoes fade and finally, mercifully, felt herself slipping toward unconsciousness. Her last conscious thought was of her mother, hoping that wherever she was now, she knew that Maya had made it to Seattle, that she was here to say goodbye. Morning arrived far too early, announced by Lily's cheerful babbling and Noah's more insistent demands for breakfast. Maya dragged herself from sleep, every muscle protesting, and tended to her children with the automatic movements of someone who had performed these tasks 1,000 times before. Change diapers. Find clean clothes. Negotiate the small battles of getting toddlers dressed. Navigate them out of the room without waking the entire house. But the house was already awake. Maya found Lisa in the kitchen making pancakes while David sat at the table with Emma and Jake, both children eating cereal and chattering about their plans for the day. They looked up when Maya entered with the twins, their expressions shifting from animated to carefully subdued, as though someone had coached them on how to behave around their grieving aunt. "Aunt Maya," Emma said carefully. "Daddy says Grandma went to heaven." Maya felt her throat close. She set Lily down in one of the high chairs David had borrowed from a neighbor and lifted Noah into the other before she trusted herself to speak. "Yes, sweetie, Grandma went to heaven. She's not hurting anymore, and she's watching over all of us." Emma seemed to consider this, her 7-year-old mind working through concepts too big for her understanding. Will she come back to visit? No, baby. When people go to heaven, they stay there. But we can remember her and talk about her, and that way she stays with us in our hearts. Jake, only 5, looked up from his cereal. "I drew Grandma a picture. Can we send it to heaven?" David's face crumpled before he got control of himself. "That's a really nice idea, buddy. Maybe we can put it with Grandma at the funeral home, so it stays with her." The children seemed satisfied with this compromise. They returned to their breakfast, the heavy topic already moving past them with the resilience of youth. Maya envied their ability to accept and move on, to feel sad without being consumed by it. Lisa served pancakes, and Maya forced herself to eat despite having no appetite. She needed fuel for the day ahead, needed strength to get through the hours that would require her to be present and functional despite wanting to do nothing but hide under blankets and pretend none of this was happening. After breakfast, Lisa took all the children, giving Maya and David time to prepare for the funeral. Maya showered, letting the hot water run over her until the small water heater ran cold, trying to wash away some of the exhaustion and grief that clung to her skin. She dressed carefully in the black dress she had packed, simple and appropriate, and applied minimal makeup, knowing that tears would ruin anything more elaborate. David knocked on the guest room door just before noon. "You ready?" "No," Maya answered honestly. "But I guess it doesn't matter." They loaded everyone into 2 cars, David driving his family, while Maya followed in a rental car with the twins. The funeral home was across town, a drive that took them through neighborhoods Maya half remembered from childhood visits to her grandparents. So much had changed, new buildings replacing old landmarks, familiar streets altered beyond recognition. But grief, she thought, grief remained constant across time and geography. Morrison Funeral Home was a tasteful brick building set back from the road, surrounded by carefully maintained gardens that would probably be beautiful in spring but looked stark and barren in late autumn. Maya parked and sat for a moment, gathering her courage before extracting the twins from their car seats and walking toward the entrance. The viewing room where her mother lay was decorated with flowers, more flowers than Maya had ever seen in one place. Arrangements from family, from friends, from her mother's church community, from coworkers past and present. The scent was overwhelming, cloying, making Maya's stomach turn. And there, at the front of the room, was the casket, closed at David's insistence, because their mother hadn't wanted people staring at her body. Maya approached slowly, the twins oddly quiet in her arms, as though they sensed the solemnity of this place. She stood before the casket, this wooden box that contained all that remained of the woman who had given her life, who had raised her, who had loved her unconditionally. Maya wanted to say something profound, some perfect words of goodbye, but her mind was blank. All she could think was how wrong this was, how her mother should be here to meet her grandchildren properly, to watch them grow, to be the grandmother she had been so excited to become. People began arriving, a steady stream of mourners coming to pay their respects. Maya recognized some faces from childhood, her mother's longtime friends and neighbors. Others were strangers, co-workers from the hospital where her mother had worked as a nurse for 30 years, people whose lives her mother had touched in ways Maya would never fully know. They approached one by one, offering condolences that blurred together. "I'm so sorry for your loss. Your mother was a wonderful woman. She spoke of you all the time. If there's anything you need." Maya nodded and thanked them, the words automatic, her heart numb. Pastor Richard arrived and pulled Maya aside to discuss the service. He was an older man with kind eyes and a gentle manner, someone her mother had trusted and respected. They went over the order of service, confirmed who would speak and when, made sure all the details were arranged. "Your mother was one of the most faithful members of our congregation," Pastor Richard said. "She never missed a Sunday unless she was visiting you or your brother. She talked about you constantly, showed everyone pictures of those beautiful grandbabies. She was so proud of you, Maya." The words should have brought comfort, but instead felt like knives. Her mother had been proud of her, and Maya had taken that pride for granted, assuming there would always be more time for phone calls and visits and making memories. Now time had run out, and all Maya had left were regrets about the time she had been too busy, too tired, too focused on her own life to fully appreciate what she had. The service began at 2, exactly as scheduled. Maya sat in the front row with David and his family, the twins restless in her lap. She stared at the casket draped with flowers and tried to focus on Pastor Richard's words, but they washed over her without penetrating. He spoke of faith and hope and eternal life, but all Maya could think about was the hole her mother's death had torn in the fabric of her existence. Then it was time for her to speak. Maya stood on shaking legs and made her way to the podium, her prepared notes clutched in trembling hands. She looked out at the assembled mourners, dozens of faces watching her with sympathy and expectation, and felt panic rise in her chest. She cleared her throat and began. "My mother was the strongest person I knew. She raised my brother and me largely on her own after our father left when we were young. She worked double shifts at the hospital to make sure we had everything we needed. She never complained, never made us feel like we were a burden, even though I'm sure there were times when she was exhausted and overwhelmed and wondering how she would make it through another day." Maya's voice cracked, but she forced herself to continue. "When I found out I was pregnant with twins, I was terrified. The father had left, and I was facing single motherhood with no idea how I would manage. My mom flew out the day after I told her. She held my hand through every doctor's appointment. She was there when Lily and Noah were born, the first person to hold them after me. She taught me how to be a mother, how to function on no sleep, how to trust myself when everything felt impossible." The tears were flowing freely now, but Maya didn't try to stop them. She kept her mom at the hospital. She said she wanted to help me, but I think part of her just wanted to be close to her grandchildren. She called every single day, even when I was too tired to be good company. She called to check on us, to make sure we were okay, to remind me that I wasn't alone. Maya looked down at the twins in Lisa's arms in the front row. Lily and Noah will grow up knowing their grandmother through stories and photos, but they won't remember her voice or her laugh or how she lit up whenever she saw them. That breaks my heart, but I promise to tell them about her every day. I promise to teach them the values she taught me. Kindness, resilience, unconditional love. I promised to be the mother she taught me to be and the grandmother she would have wanted them to know. She paused, struggling for composure. The last time I spoke to my mom was 4 days ago. It was a normal conversation, nothing special. She asked about the twins, told me about her garden, made plans to visit next month. I said I love you before hanging up, but I said it quickly, distracted by Noah demanding attention. I didn't know it would be the last time. Maya's voice broke completely. If I had known, I would have said it differently. I would have said it 1,000 times. I would have told her everything she meant to me, thanked her for every sacrifice, every kindness, every moment of love. But I didn't know, and now I can't, and I have to live with that regret. She gripped the podium, forcing herself to finish. But I know she knew. Despite my distraction, despite the times I was too busy or too tired to fully appreciate her, I know she knew I loved her. Because that's who she was. She saw the best in people, especially her children. She loved us unconditionally, without keeping score, without holding grudges. And that love is her greatest gift to us, the knowledge that we were cherished completely, just as we were. Maya looked at the casket one final time. Thank you, Mom. Thank you for everything. Thank you for life and love and showing me what it means to be truly present for the people you care about. I miss you more than words can say. I'll miss you every day for the rest of my life. But I promise to honor your memory by being the kind of person you raised me to be and by loving your grandchildren the way you loved me. Rest well. You've earned it. She returned to her seat on unsteady legs, David reaching over to squeeze her hand. Around them, people were crying openly, dabbing at their eyes with tissues. The service continued with hymns and readings, but Maya barely registered any of it. She had said her goodbye, and now all that remained was getting through the burial and the reception and somehow finding her way back to a life without her mother in it. The cemetery was cold and gray, the threatened rain finally beginning to fall in a light mist. They stood around the grave as Pastor Richards said the final prayers, as the casket was lowered into the earth, as mourners filed past to drop flowers onto the descending box. Maya stood frozen, watching her mother disappear into the ground, and felt something fundamental shift inside her. This was real. This was permanent. There would be no more phone calls, no more visits, no more chances to say the things she had always meant to say. This was the end of a chapter, and Maya would have to figure out how to write the next one without her mother's guidance. At the reception, held at David's house, Maya moved through rooms full of people offering comfort and sharing memories. She held the twins, using them as both shield and anchor, accepting casseroles and condolences with equal numbness. She heard stories about her mother she had never known, saw sides of her mother's life that had existed separate from her role as parent and grandparent. Eleanor would have known how to handle this, Maya thought suddenly. Eleanor would have known what to say, how to accept sympathy without feeling crushed by it. But Eleanor was gone too, vanished back into whatever life she had been living before their flights intersected. As evening approached and guests began to leave, Maya found herself alone in David's backyard, the twins playing on a blanket at her feet. The rain had stopped, leaving everything wet and glistening. She thought about tomorrow, about flying home with the twins, about returning to her empty apartment and her routine and the life that would continue despite this monumental loss. She thought about her mother's last words to her during that final phone call. "I love you, sweetie. Take care of those babies." Such simple, ordinary words that now felt like prophecy and blessing combined. Maya looked at Lily and Noah, their faces still innocent of understanding what today meant. They would grow up without their grandmother, but they would know her through Maya, through stories and photos and the values she would pass down, through the love that continued even after death, the love that connected generations and transcended loss. The back door opened and David emerged, carrying 2 cups of coffee. He handed one to Maya and sat beside her on the damp grass, neither of them caring about the wetness seeping through their clothes. "You did good today," he said quietly. Mom would have been proud of that eulogy. "I couldn't have done it without thinking about Eleanor," Maya admitted. "This woman I met at the airport yesterday. She helped me with the twins, and reminded me that accepting help isn't weakness, that kindness matters, that we get through impossible things by letting people show up for us. David nodded, sipping his coffee. Mom always said that too. Remember how she used to volunteer at that women's shelter? She said everyone needs someone in their corner, especially when life gets hard. Maya did remember, and the memory brought fresh tears. Her mother had lived her values, had shown through action what it meant to care for others. And now Maya would have to find a way to do the same, to honor that legacy while navigating her own path. They sat in silence as twilight deepened, two siblings united in loss, watching their children play and knowing that life, however changed, would continue moving forward. 6 months had passed since the funeral, 6 months of learning to navigate life without her mother's steady presence. Maya had returned to her routine, to work and daycare drop-offs, and the endless cycle of cooking and cleaning and trying to be everything her twins needed. The grief hadn't disappeared, but it had shifted, becoming something she carried rather than something that carried her. She was pushing the double stroller through the farmer's market on a Saturday morning when she saw her. Eleanor stood at a vegetable stand, examining tomatoes with the careful attention of someone who knew exactly what they were looking for. Maya stopped so abruptly that a jogger behind her nearly collided with the stroller. Eleanor looked up as though sensing Maya's stare, and recognition flashed across her face, followed immediately by a warm smile. "Maya?" She set down the tomato and walked over, her movements as calm and purposeful as they had been that chaotic day at the airport. "Eleanor," Maya breathed, hardly believing this coincidence. "I can't believe it's you. I've thought about you so many times since that flight." The older woman looked at the twins, now 2 years old and significantly bigger than they had been during that difficult journey. "And look at these two. They've grown beautifully. How are you all doing?" "We're okay," Maya said, and realized it was true. "We're actually okay. The funeral was hard, and the months after were harder, but we're making it through." Eleanor reached out and squeezed Maya's arm, that same gesture of comfort she had offered on the plane. "I'm glad to hear it. Grief is a long road, but it sounds like you're walking it with grace." They moved to a nearby bench, and Maya found herself telling Eleanor everything. About the funeral and her eulogy, about returning home and learning to parent through grief, about the small moments of joy that had started breaking through the sadness. Eleanor listened with the same complete attention she had given Maya that day at the gate, never interrupting, never offering platitudes, just being present. When Maya finished, Eleanor shared her own story. How after her husband died, she had sold their large family home and moved into a smaller condo near her daughter. How she had started volunteering at the airport, helping travelers who seemed lost or overwhelmed, paying forward the kindness that had once been shown to her. How she had learned that purpose could be found in the smallest acts of service. "I look for people who need help," Eleanor explained. "Parents traveling alone with children, elderly passengers struggling with bags, anyone who looks like they're barely holding it together. Sometimes I just offer to carry something or watch their belongings while they use the restroom. Small things that can make a difficult day slightly less impossible." Maya felt tears gathering. "You were at the airport volunteering that day? I thought you were just a passenger on my flight." Eleanor smiled. "I was both. I volunteer in the mornings, then catch a flight to visit one of my children. That day, I was heading to Seattle to see my youngest son. Finding you was a gift, Maya. You reminded me why the work matters." They exchanged contact information this time, promises to stay in touch that felt genuine and lasting. As they parted, Eleanor hugged Maya tightly. "Remember what I told you on the plane. When you see someone struggling, offer them kindness. You have so much to give, even when you feel empty." Maya watched Eleanor disappear into the market crowd. This guardian angel who had appeared exactly when needed and now reappeared to remind Maya that she wasn't alone, that connections could form in the most unexpected places and sustain us through the hardest seasons. That afternoon, while the twins napped, Maya sat down and wrote a letter to her mother. She poured everything onto the pages, all the things she wished she had said during that last phone call, all the gratitude and love and grief she carried. When she finished, she folded the letter carefully and placed it in a box with other mementos of her mother. She would never mail this letter, but writing it had served its purpose. It had given voice to everything she held inside, had honored her mother's memory, while also acknowledging her own pain. And in that acknowledgement, Maya found something she hadn't expected. Peace, tentative and fragile but real. The twins woke from their nap demanding snacks and attention, pulling Maya back into the present moment where life continued its relentless forward march. As she prepared their afternoon snack, Lily tugged on her pants leg. "Mama, up!" Maya lifted her daughter, settling her on her hip in that familiar position that had become second nature. Noah toddled over, not wanting to be left out, and Maya scooped him up too, one child on each hip, just like that terrible day at the airport. But this time was different. This time she wasn't drowning in exhaustion and grief and the weight of doing everything alone. This time she knew that help existed, that kindness could appear from unexpected sources, that surviving meant accepting support when it was offered and offering it to others when she could. Maya carried her children to the window, showing them the birds gathered at the feeder outside. Lily pointed excitedly while Noah babbled his observations. And Maya, holding her precious twins close, whispered a promise to her absent mother and to Eleanor and to herself. She would pay the kindness forward. She would watch for people who were struggling and offer them the same grace Eleanor had shown her. She would teach her children that strength didn't mean carrying everything alone, that asking for help was brave, that small acts of compassion could change someone's entire day. The afternoon sun streamed through the window, illuminating dust motes that danced in the golden light. Somewhere across town, Eleanor was probably helping another overwhelmed traveler. Somewhere beyond reach, Maya's mother existed in memory and love and the values she had instilled. And here, in this moment, Maya stood with her children and felt something that had been absent for months. Hope. Not the naive hope that pain would disappear or that loss could be undone, but the deeper hope that came from surviving impossible things and discovering you were stronger than you knew. The hope that said tomorrow would come and you would face it, that grief and joy could coexist, that life after loss was still life worth living. Maya kissed both twins on their heads, breathing in their familiar scent, and smiled through the tears that had become as much about gratitude as sorrow. They had made it through the worst, and they would keep making it through whatever came next. Together, with help from unexpected angels and the enduring love of those who came before, they would be okay. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.